Something at 7:05 p.m. We are live streaming the meeting on YouTube channel. Our board administrator has already confirmed that we have an open forum. And we do have two commissioners who have expected to participate electronically. Jennifer DeWolf participating virtually from Richmond under the permission of living in our meeting location. And David Snyder is participating virtually from Falls Church for a medical reason. Can I just have a motion to approve the commissioners DeWolf and Snyder's request to participate remotely?
So moved.
So moved from Evan, a second from Ms. Garvey. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Thank you.
Oh, good. And we can hear Mr. Snyder and I can do Mrs. Rule. Let me just double check we can hear her.
Yep, I'm here too.
So wonderful. Happy New Year to both of you and Happy New Year to everyone joining us here. Hope everyone had a safe, joyful, and family-filled New Year. Tonight is our public hearing and our annual organization meeting and the start of MBTC's 60th anniversary. It was a very exciting year and day. We will be welcoming one new commissioner who is here with us tonight, as well as sadly saying goodbye to two of our commissioners. We'll be holding our annual public hearing on MBTC's work plan and presenting a number of actions for the commission's consideration. With the agenda, we are aiming to group some actions together as block votes to help save time. We do have votes pretty much through the entirety of the meeting. For the public hearing and the public comments, we want everyone to know a few things to go over. During our agenda item number 7, we will hold a public hearing to solicit public comments on the proposed work plan for the coming year. For those who wish to speak, and we know we have speakers here tonight. If you haven't signed up yet, please add your name to the list. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Also, as we do each month, MBTC continues to seek general public comments. Kate, do we have any public comments this month?
We do not have any general public comments, apart from what we see later for the public hearing.
Excellent. Well, that being said, we will now move on to our oath of office for our new commissioner. Loudoun County has appointed Supervisor Julie Briskman to MBTC to replace Mr. Mike Turner. Supervisor Wood Briskman, welcome. We're very delighted to see you at MBTC. And if you would like to join me for the oath of office up front. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
And the Commonwealth of Virginia. That I will faithfully discharge.
and that I will faithfully discharge
All the duties and duties upon me.
all the duties of
As a member of the Northern Virginia Constitution Commission.
as a member of the Northern Virginia Commission.
According to the best of my ability.
According to
Welcome. Thank you very much. Next up, Julie, we're so excited to have you. Would you like to say anything?
Sure. My name is Julie Briskman. I represent the Algonquin District in Loudoun County. It's the easternmost district. If you're not aware, the Fairfax County line is my eastern border. Route 7 is my southern border. The river is my northern border. And my district runs out to about Janelia, if you're familiar with that campus. I'm really looking forward to being with you. I have not had a ton of experience on transportation issues, except for maybe on Metro Washington Council of Governments a little bit. So I'm very much looking forward to getting involved and getting down the weeds on some of the issues. Thank you.
We're so delighted to have you, especially as the Silver Line has moving strongly ahead. So happy to have you with us. Tonight, we are also saying farewell to two of our commissioners. Fairfax County Board Chairman Jeff McKay and Loudoun County Supervisor Mike Turner. hopefully won't scare you away as well, Julie. We have prepared a resolution of commendations for both of them. Without objection, we will be voting on both resolutions as a block vote. Could I please have a motion to approve the resolutions of commendation for our departing commissioners, Jeff McKay and Mike Turner?
Second.
Move and a second. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And now let me do a roll call vote for our electronic participants, Mr. Snyder.
Yes.
And Mr. Gould is not voting because we have Mr. Palmer. The motion does pass. Before we move up, just briefly share a little bit about Jeff McKay. As you know, he is also the chairman of Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, one of our longest serving commissioners, representing Fairfax County on MBT since 2008. He was only 8 at the time. Well, we have a 7-year-old, so she'll be there next year. He has served as MPC's chair on 2 occasions, both in 2013 and 2017. And Mr. McCann served on the WMATA Board of Directors from 2008 to 2012. He's been an incredible champion for public transit in Northern Virginia, both when serving the Prince William District, as well as he understands the positive benefit that transit has on the government and on reaching regional greenhouse gas reduction goals and supporting our local and regional efforts to transition to zero emission bus fleet, clearly as well, the impact on our economic development. He's been one of our biggest champions of NTC's key study, examining the value of Northern Virginia transit to the empire. So to that, let me just say briefly, because we have a long meeting. I'm very fortunate. I get to continue to serve with Mr. McKay on our official capacities on the Board of Supervisors. But I know his voice will be dearly missed here on this commission. So I know that we will be well served by both our Fairfax County members to be appointed, as well as by the entirety of our Northern Virginia commission. Instead, let me turn it over to Jeff for any additional comments.
Well, thanks, Chair Pavlik. I'll be very brief. It has been a great run. 16 years ago. I was trying to catch Dave Snyder for the record. And I know I never will now. But I do, just so there's no confusion, I am removing myself from this because one of the jobs the chair of our board does is appoint supervisors in Fairfax to organizations like NBTC. So I don't want anyone to think there was some kind of coup that took place. Me doing this, but I'm doing it for a couple of reasons. One, because I know looking back in all the years at NBTC, I can tell you without a doubt that this organization is in so much a better place today than it was when I started 16 years ago. And a lot of that is because of the quality of the commissioners for sure. But the real reason is because of the quality of the staff and the people that work at NBTC who do an amazing job. And so this organization will continue to thrive. And, you know, when I think about the future is bright. We have new supervisors, new people who have an opportunity to come to the commission and serve and understand the importance of regionalism, and in this case, keeping Northern Virginia together. And so I always tell folks our constituents don't really care how systems work, but they expect us to make sure they work. And NBTC is a good example of that. You don't care what bus system you're on, you just want the buses to connect and work and get you to where you're going. A lot of that work happens in this room, cooperation of a lot of different jurisdictions. And so I appreciate the opportunity to serve. I appreciate all that we've done in the last 16 years. For those of you, just to go back in history, the first commission meeting I came to was over down by Ballston. And we were in a room that was probably a tenth of this size, jammed up so tight that if you had to get up to go eat or use the restroom, you literally had to like run along the wall behind other commissioners to get out. And I think about all those commissioners who were there at the beginning when I started serving 16 years ago. Remarkable bunch of people, but pales in comparison to what NBTC is doing today and how far we've come in that short period of time and how important transit was then and continues to be in Northern Virginia. So I just appreciate the chance to serve and most importantly, know when it's time to let other people I'll be able to serve in this great organization too, and that's what time is now. So thank you.
We'll be able to add this to the many, many boards and commissions. And so to that, I'd like to join me up front for a photo. I apologize. I should have asked if anyone else wanted to stay. So please, Mr. McKay or of Mr. McKay, time for a good roast here. But
Yeah, guys. Well, long agenda.
he's still my boss, so I'm gonna.
Thanks.
Excellent. All right. Well, to that, we will move on to Mr. Mike Turner. Loudoun County Board Supervisor Mark Turner has served on MVTC since 2020 and has been an active member of the Program Advisory Committee. He was a champion of the Silver Line opening and advancing transit options for all residents. And Mr. Turner, if you join me up front first, I think I did it backwards last time. Let's go, but you know what? I like this better. I want to thank you for your years of service. I know it's been a pleasure in the time I've been here, both as a new member, we started at the same time, as well as a chair. Your thoughtfulness, your ability to really make sure that we are thinking strategy, financial strategy, the impact strategy, and that we are using metrics for everything that is done. And I know that your voice has been very appreciated and helpful in that regard. It will be missed. I know we have a great replacement, though that's not a possibility, representative from Loudoun. But I just want to personally thank you for the time that we've been able to together on this board. And I hope that while not on the MBTC, as your continued role on the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors will be able to continue to work with you and count on you, especially as you continue to champion transit, metro, and Silver Line.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments before I turn it over to Mr. Turner?
Sure. My experience in the 4 years I've been a supervisor has really indelibly etched on my awareness, just how good public service in the DC area is. I mean, it's my own experience in the DC area. I absolutely echo Chair McKay's comments. Kate and the staff have been amazing. I'm just as impressed with the staff out of Loudoun County. Every time I run into staff, they're just stellar. They're just amazing. Public commissioners are clearly very dedicated and real dedicated in professional public service. I'm continually impressed every time I encounter public servants in the Commonwealth and in the DC metro area. And then lastly, the problems are so hard. They're so complex. None of this is easy. And so we take the slings and arrows from the public, but man, oh man, there's some really, really sharp people working on some very, very difficult problems. And I'm just impressed that everybody is so dedicated, so committed. So thank you all very much. It's been a true honor and privilege. I appreciate it.
Join me up front for us.
You guys will have to excuse me. I am a single dog parent.
Sometimes these are more challenging than the single child. All right, well, to that, we do also expect a few changes in the coming months as we anticipate some new and Senate committee appointments, as well as new members from our jurisdictions who have not yet been appointed. 3A, we will now approve the recommended slate of officers for 2024. The executive committee recommends the following slate of officers for 2024. As chair, Mr. Matt Visronti from Arlington County. As vice chair, Dave Snyder from the city of Falls Church. And secretary treasurer, Sarah Bagley from the city of Alexandria. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, could I please have a motion to approve the recommended slate of officers?
So, second.
So moved, with a second, that was Mr. Alcorn.
She can't have
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And let me do a roll call of those participating electronically, which is Mr. Snyder.
Aye.
Excellent. Well, the motion passes unanimously. Congratulations to our new officers. If you could join, please join me up front for the. Not there yet. And I guess I'll do it after. Or can they do it together? You can, okay. The amount of our notes. Sharon's here. Okay. Please move up the right hand. Dave, your right hand, perfect. I do solemnly swear. That I will support the Constitution.
That I will support the Constitution
Of the United States.
of the United States
And the Commonwealth of Virginia.
and the Commonwealth of Virginia,
And that I will faithfully discharge.
and that I will faithfully discharge
All the duties incumbent upon me.
all the
duties incumbent upon me
As an officer of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission.
as an officer of the Northern Virginia,
Virginia Transportation Commission,
To the best of my abilities.
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Hey, let's go by Dave. We're gonna get.
That's too long.
Get a picture.
Whew, all right, my job is done. And so to that, I am passing the gavel to the newly elected chair, Mr. Guzrati, for any opening remarks.
Sure, thank you, Chair Emeritus Palchik. I think we should all, I've got a couple of quick compliments for you, and I'll just say thank you for your leadership over the past year. We will do a picture, but on behalf of the entire commission, I want to acknowledge your exceptional work. We have some big picture accomplishments of the past year that you have played an integral role in. You've been an advocate for equity in all aspects of transit, including zero and reduced fare initiatives that benefit those most in need, multilingual community outreach and marketing, and a transit-oriented economic development plan for Northern Virginia, moving that forward. In 2023, there's our 59th year. There's some major milestones and accomplishments that included releasing the key study that we talked about, that Chair McKay referred to, that led to 1.5 billion in annual tax revenues as a direct result of the region's vast transit network. We set records in commuter choice programs with the highest level of public outreach and engagement in Spanish and English, supporting 5 million trips on the I-66 and I-395 corridors, saving travel time, fuel costs, and reducing emissions. We have just recently published NVTC's 6th annual report on the performance and condition of Metro, with near-term recommendations to stabilize Metro, the biggest, one of the biggest topics we've been thinking and working on, and sustain ridership over the coming next few years, and avoid the devastating service cuts, as well as to offer a framework to develop longer-term funding and reform solutions. Exactly one of the complex problems that the party Commissioner Turner referred to. Envision Route 7 BRT, I know is a particular passion of yours, and advancing that towards its final stage of planning has been another accomplishment. We've launched regional zero emissions strategic plan to identify challenges and opportunities in transitioning local bus fleets away from fossil fuels. And we've expanded NVTC's latest regional transit marketing to engage wider audiences. On a personal level, your preparation has been consistent and outstanding. You always lead with a question on key subjects. Your commitment to public transit always has shown through over the past year. And your leadership has been wonderful to see and to get to sort of have a seat to watch your leadership over the past year. So certainly our first Latina chair, but also an outstanding chair that those who've chaired this before all know. So we're grateful for your leadership, and I'd ask if we could give her a round of applause. So with that, I will take a motion to approve the resolution of commendation for Chair Palchik for the past year.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Garvey, I nearly said Vice Chair Garvey, Arlington, and Chair McKay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Snyder, are you a yes on that?
Oh, yeah, a strong yes. Thank you.
So the motion passes, and we will step up here for a picture with this plaque to reflect all the work, and also this copy of the resolution.
No. Yes.
Congratulations again, and we'll take a second round of applause for everyone. Before we start the next set, you may notice that 10 o'clock is sort of when we're projected. And on December 18th, I welcomed a baby girl into the world with my wife. And her name is Evelyn Margot DeFerranti. And many people have children, but when you have your own, you think that the world should revolve around that child. Of course, I know better, but I am eager at the end of the night to get back to see my 17-year-old daughter. So we will take full discussion. We will also keep the meeting moving. And to that end, to that end, if there are no objections, I propose that we vote the next three action items as a block. They are resolutions 2527, 2528, and 2529. We will review the action prior to the vote. 3C, action item 2520, resolution 2527, approve the selection of NBTC representatives to various boards for 2024. Each January, NBTC appoints and/or confirms its appointments to the Vermont Board of Directors, the Virginia Railway Express Operations Board, and the Virginia Transit Association Board of Directors. Resolution 2527 includes the WMATA Board appointments, with Paul Smedberg continuing as the Commonwealth Principal appointee to the WMATA Board, with Kenneth Aguirre as the alternate, and with Matt Letourneau as the NBTC Principal appointee, with Walter Alcorn as his alternate. The resolution affirms the appointments of the WMATA Board members and their terms. Member terms and requirements are subject to Virginia Code. Walter Alcorn's term expires on January 4, 2024, and the recommendation is to appoint him to another 4-year term. The VRE Operation Board appointments are selected by each VRE jurisdiction and then appointed by the NBTC. Fairfax County's alternate selection to replace Jeff McKay won't be known until the Fairfax January 23rd, 2024 meeting. In that case, subsequent action will be needed at a future meeting. Sarah Bagley is nominated to serve as a VTA alternate. That's 3C. 3D, action item resolution 2528 approves the recommendation of NBTC committee chairmanship for as outlined in the NBT's bylaws. NBTC has 4 committees: Executive Committee, WMATA Committee, Legislative and Policy Committee, and Program Advisory Committee. Each January, the commission approves the committee roster. The proposed committee chairs are as follows: Matthew Brantley as NBTC chair will serve as chair of the executive committee. Walter Alcorn will serve as chair of the WMATA committee. Dalia Palchik and Gokar will serve as the chair of the program advisory committee, and Kanika Gide will serve as the chair of the Legislative and Policy Committee. The rest of the committee membership did not change, but there are some vacancies that need to be filled by action at future meetings. The resolution has been updated to add new Commissioner Julie Briskman to the Program Advisory Committee. Thank you. Just a reminder that all commissioners can attend any committee meeting, and they are all public meetings. That's 3D. 3E, action item, approved resolution 2529, the designation of NBT signatories and pension trustees. This is an administrative housekeeping item in January to designate the newly appointed secretary treasurer as NBTC signatory and pension trustee. Sarah Bagley, Commissioner, is listed as the new secretary treasurer in the final resolution. Commissioners have any questions or comments from the three actions being requested? Hearing none, the three actions being voted on as a block, resolution 2527 to appoint the NBTC board appointments for 2024, resolution 2528, NBTC committee membership for 2024, and resolution 2529, NBT signatories and pension trustees. Can I have a motion to approve these three actions?
So moved.
Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Palchik. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Karantonis. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Now, Mr. Snyder, are you a yes on that, on those block of motions?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. The motion passes. Thanks, everyone. Now we'll move on to action item 4A, the meeting summary of December 1st, 2023 legislative forum. Can I have a motion to approve the meeting summary of that forum on the first one? Moved by Commissioner Garvey. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Palchik. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Thank you, Ms. Briskman. Commissioner Briskman abstains. Mr. Snyder, on that question, are you aye, nay, or opposed?
Aye.
Aye. That's the electronic participation group. The motion passes unanimously. 4B, minutes of December 7th, 2023 meeting. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of that meeting? So moved by Mr. Aguirre. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner McKay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
We have Commissioner Gilroy and Commissioner Bristol. Mr. Snyder, on the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Snyder. So that's the minutes. Now we are at item 5, and a chance for you to hear from someone else besides me going on. NBTC 2022 year in review. It's always it's 2023. Yes.
2023.
It's always
You're
good.
so fast.
It's always, yeah, no joke. It's always good to look back and see what we've accomplished over the past year. Kate, could you give us a sense?
Absolutely. So indeed, we've had a very busy, exciting year. And you won't have to hear me say it here live. Our talented communications team, Matt Friedman, Monique Blyther, and Nathan Barnell worked hard for a short video, and as well as the printed annual report that is at your place at the table. I think we've got some for the public as well. And so it gives a nice overview of what's been going on in 2023 and our accomplishments. So we can go ahead and watch the video.
When we look back at 2023, we see a year full of milestones and record achievements for the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. Hi, I'm NVTC Executive Director Kate Mattice. In 2023, NVTC released a key study examining the value of Northern Virginia transit, finding that the Commonwealth of Virginia receives $1.5 billion in annual tax revenue as a direct result of Northern Virginia's transit network. That's equivalent to 5% of Virginia's general fund, money that can be used on schools, public safety, and other services statewide. Those findings are pivotal to the discussions surrounding the future of Metro. This year's installment on the report on the performance and condition of WMATA makes key near, mid, and long-term recommendations to Metro on ways to control costs and improve operational efficiencies. This coming year, the agency faces unprecedented budget deficits resulting from long-standing structural funding issues, accelerated by the drop in daily commuting and rising costs from inflation. There's also a lot to be excited about. Our commuter choice program set records this year, supporting 5 million trips on the I-66 and I-395 corridors, saving travel time, fuel costs, and reducing emissions. And the extension of the I-95 express lanes in Fredericksburg now means even more people will enjoy smoother, faster rides when they board the region's commuter buses. Other NVTC studies took a deep dive into how the envisioned Route 7 bus rapid transit network would run through the city of Falls Church, how infrastructure improvements could move buses faster through our region, and how amenities at bus stops in our communities have improved over time. The long-awaited Potomac Yard Virginia Tech Metro Station opened in May, serving a fast-growing part of Alexandria and solidifying the National Landing Corridor as a place to live, work, and play, all connected by robust metro, VRE, and bus routes. Our staff also played a vital role in coordinating transportation alternatives as Metro rebuilt the Yellow Line Bridge and portions of the Orange Line. We continued our support for VRE, which NVTC co-owns with the Potomac and Rappahannock Transportation Commission, ensuring the commuter railroad can adapt to ridership changes brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic as it brings aboard new riders and continues to serve those who've been loyal to the system. We're also planning for the future, launching a regional zero-emission strategic plan to identify challenges and opportunities in transitioning local bus fleets away from fossil fuels. Finally, we were busy seeing you in person. Staff and I attended countless events this year, connecting and reconnecting with people in a way we hadn't been able to in the previous few years. I'm grateful for the opportunities to renew and cultivate relationships that will help all of us as we continue to work across political and geographic boundaries to make our region accessible for everyone. Thanks for watching, and learn more at novatransit.org.
Great, thank you both to the communications team and for putting that together. It does help give a sense of the entire year. It's been a productive year for the commission as we continue to focus on public transportation issues that matter to Northern Virginia. We know that this past year and this year to come, serious and significant thinking are particularly needed, in addition to the ongoing great work that we do. Thank you to all the staff, as well as to each of you as commissioners who has showed up and engaged to help make this past year a good one and to help NVTC and our work shine. From last year to the year ahead, 2024 is going to be interesting times, you might say. Exciting year for the commission. Kate, can you give us some details on our 16th year?
So indeed, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I will be talking a little bit more about our 2024 work plan as we lead up to our public hearing. But one of the things that we're really excited to do, and I know this is, we have actually around the table for all of our commissioners, is it's our 60th anniversary year for NVTC. So a lot of the things that you are going to see over the course of the year are really going to be celebrating the incredible contributions of this commission over that time. And just, you know, what we're really talking about is NVTC being founded back in 1964, representing all of the cities and counties that we see around here. And it was really about starting Metro Rail and having all of you as a voice for that place with Metro Rail. But then we launched or helped launch VRE, Commuter Rail, you know, and then even more recently launching the Commuter Choice Program. And all through those decades, we've been working with all of your jurisdictions to help our transit network be stronger and more effective. And so again, we've got a lot to celebrate. Over the course of the year, we have a number of key events that are really going to be celebrating marquee events really for the year. We are planning a legislative reception on February 1st down in Richmond. I know that is VACO VML Local Government Day. There'll be an opportunity to come together with an NVTC crowd and meet with legislators at that on February 1st at the St. Paul's Episcopal Church right by the Capitol. We're also going to be holding a research and policy symposium at George Mason University on June 14th. And then finally, we actually are planning an anniversary celebration and documentary premiere at Marymount University in Arlington on September 5th. Many of you around the table and many of our previous commissioners have been interviewed. So you'll get a chance to see the amazing product that we've put together, our staff is working on right now. So again, there's a lot of great exciting things we have going on this year. You're gonna see obviously a lot more things with branding of our 60th. But the story of NVTC is really quite a remarkable one. I was gonna do a shout out later in the meeting, but one of the folks we've had as a fellow, an intern working for us for the past year, Nathan Barnell, has really been diving into archives, and you'd be absolutely amazed, especially for those folks who are newer to the commission, is just how many programs, projects, initiatives in Northern Virginia and in our region in general have the fingerprints of NVTC. We may, in many instances, have been behind the scenes on many activities. And so it's really been quite a remarkable exercise in going through that history. You're going to see a lot of that in that documentary, and everybody here must be invited to that event in the evening of September 5th. So that is what I've got highlighted in that area, because I know we've got just a little bit on the work plan as we go into
Great, thank you. So we do have an exciting year ahead. Looking forward to it. We will, unless there's burning questions, we'll move on to item 7, which is NVTC's fiscal year 2025 general administrative budget and 2024-2025 work plan. We will be asked tonight to approve the FY 2025 budget and work plan. But before that, we will open up the meeting for a public comment on NVTC's proposed 2024-2025 work plan. While we accept public comments at each of our monthly meetings, this annual public comment opportunity allows the public to provide comments on the scope of NVTC's work. The work plan is a living document that shapes the day-to-day management, analysis, and oversight work conducted by NVTC staff. It's somewhat unique in that it's set out as I believe an 18-month look, and it can be revised regularly. Today's hearing is an opportunity for the public to provide input to the commission on the direction of NVTC so that we can incorporate in future work plans. We were just discussing before the meeting that it's a living document, which is the way such a work plan really should be. Before we open the public hearing, though, Kate, will you give us an overview of the activities planned for the commission and its staff for 2024 as part of the work plan? So first, we'll hear from Kate, then we'll get to the public hearing.
Thank you, Chair DeFerenti. And indeed, as we shared in December with the commission and posted online for the public to review, NVTC does anticipate some major efforts this year. First and foremost, we plan on continuing our strong and effective financial management of public transportation funding. We anticipate that NVTC is going to manage more than $390 million in funding, and that's comprised from the federal, state, regional tax, and fuel revenues. And this really, everything we're doing is to help our localities support the public transit systems and the public transit services, I should say, that are provided by WMATA, by VRE, and by their local bus systems. Just to highlight a couple of efforts, indeed, we anticipate this year to be a big year for policy development and analysis, especially related to understanding the needs both of WMATA as well as all of our local bus systems and VRE in advance of making the case for dedicated and sustainable funding for all of those services in the coming years. So again, NVTC staff in many of these areas are providing analytical support so we can provide that to all of you to press on policy decisions moving forward. In addition, our Route 7 BRT planning efforts are going to be in full swing with the launch of the final phase of corridor planning and environmental work that are going to support the entire Route 7 corridor. And then finally, through all of this, and of course, we've got a lot of things on this slide, a lot of things that are included. All of these things really come through all of our committees. And so the role of our committee and helping to vet and work with the staff to refine things before we bring them to the commission is really important. So obviously our WMATA committee, our program advisory committee, and our legislative committees, you have a great deal of work this year, but we plan on giving you the best quality products so you can have informed decision making. And finally, all of our meetings are available, open to all commissioners and the public, both in person and on our YouTube channel. And so that's, again, just a real summary. We've got a lot of great information in the Word material that's been posted online for a couple months now. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you, Ms. Mattice. So Now we'll move to the public comment on the work plan. We turn to our public hearing. Each year, MVTC provides the public the opportunity to submit via an online form, video, email, audio recording, and person comments on our work plan as a whole. I do believe we have speakers here this evening. But before we ask them to come to the podium, Kate, do we have any comments on the work plan that were submitted prior to the meeting?
Indeed, Mr. Chair, we did receive 2 written public comments on MVTC work plan in advance. And Matt Freeman, Public Information Officer, who just went ahead and read them now.
Okay, good evening. We have 2, we have a letter. First comes from the Arlington Chamber of Commerce on behalf of Kate Bates, who's the president and CEO. She says the Arlington Chamber of Commerce supports the proposed Northern Virginia Transportation Commission work plan for 2024 to 2025 and encourages its adoption. A strong infrastructure, including a robust transportation network, is essential for business to grow. The NVTC's work to achieve its strategic plan of increasing the capacity, accessibility, connectivity, and safety of our regional transit network helps deliver this vital infrastructure. The Chamber encourages NVTC to continue these key efforts. The work plan includes a commitment to identify and seek to implement stable, reliable, permanent, and dedicated funding sources for operating and capital expenses for WMATA, VRE, and local transit systems. The Chamber also commends NVTC for their work in developing recommendations for WMATA funding reform and funding policies and looks forward to continued engagement on this vital matter in 2024 and 2025. Building and maintaining a robust integrated transportation system in Northern Virginia is key to ensuring a strong community and connected regional economy and labor market. The Chamber commends NVTC for its efforts in this regard and supports their continuation. Thank you for your consideration of these comments. The second comment tonight comes from Kenny Vogt, who I believe is a supervisor in Prince William County. He has written to us, thank you for giving the public the opportunity to comment on the work plan. I support and agree with the grand majority of the plan as it highlights the paradigm shift between simply building roads to carry cars toward multimodal solutions for our residents. So many of the important projects in progress in our region exist due to, in some part, to the efforts of the NVTC staff and the elected officials who sit on it. The main area I hope NVTC would consider addressing is the DRPT Springfield to Quantico Enhanced Public Transportation Feasibility Study, which was conducted at the request of the Virginia General Assembly in 2021. The study determined that a wide variety of transit alternatives from express bus to metro extension are feasible and should be explored. As it has been 2 years since the conclusion of that study, it is time to begin planning around the findings of it. It is my firm belief that an all of the above approach should be taken to planning the alternatives from the study. Building capacity around expanded express bus service builds capacity for and creates time for bus rapid transit, which helps build capacity for rail and eventually a metro extension to Prince William County. With an eye of creating transit hubs around the major activity centers between Springfield and Quantico, we can finally begin to be proactive about our transportation needs as opposed to reactive. Our shared constituents' quality of life depends on it. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. We believe we may have also members of the public who have signed up to speak here tonight. Mr. Owen, then do we have speakers? Let's see, a couple of just guidelines, ground rules. Please come to the podium when your name is called. State your name and the city or county you live in for the record. You will have 3 minutes for comment, and staff will signal to you when there are 30 seconds that remain. And Mr. Owen, your speakers.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do have 2 members of the public signed up to speak. First up, please, Mr. Bill Pugh.
Hi, good evening, Chair DeFronte, and outgoing Chair Paul Chick and Commission members. My name is Bill Pugh. I'm a staff member with the Coalition for Smarter Growth. I'm also a resident of Alexandria, and my family and I are frequent transit users in Northern Virginia. This past year, we applaud a number of things that NVTC did, including the value of Northern Virginia transit to the Commonwealth, the bus priority study, also collaborating with us on a webinar on improving bus service in Northern Virginia. And we look forward to your 2024-2025 work plan that you've offered for comment. I think the first and largest priority is the WMATA legislative and analytical support. And last month, the coalition and 17 other groups from the region released a statement of principles for an agreement on Metro funding. This is critically important. We need funding that continues the frequent, reliable, and affordable service. And we thank NVTC for its work in this area on finding Metro funding. We do conclude our coalition that the region, its localities, and the states need to provide the additional funding to fully close the $650 million gap. Yes, this would mean more than the $100 million of Virginia funding that this body has proposed. But the members here, all of you in your jurisdictions, have committed to transit-oriented communities, to social equity, and to slashing greenhouse gas emissions. We have just 6 years to cut emissions by 50% to achieve the region's climate goals and the goals of, I think, every jurisdiction that's represented here. So fully funding Metro's gap and preserving frequent, reliable, affordable service will be essential to that. And the coalition and our partner groups are ready to fight with you for the majority of this funding to come from the state. Secondly, another priority we are glad to see is the Envision Route 7 in the work plan. We look forward to the results of the strategic implementation plan that's underway. We also urge faster movement on this project. And one key component will be transformation of Route 7 into a safer street for people walking, biking, and getting to transit stops. Lastly, another priority in the plan that we applaud are the regional bus studies. We look forward to the results of the regional bus analysis study. And also, we ask for this body's continued support of the WMATA Better Bus Initiative, and that a Metro funding deal supports its implementation, including the updated bus network. So again, we thank you for your work. We appreciate the other items in the work plan as well, and look forward to continuing our collaboration with you this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pugh. Appreciate your comments. Is there another speaker?
One more signed up, Mr. Jason Stanford.
Thank you, Jason Stanford, Arlington resident. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today. My name is Jason Stanford, president of the Northern Virginia Transportation Alliance. Here today with my daughter, Violet. I'm here today also to comment on the Metro part of the work plan, specifically related to the Alliance's concerns about the long-term sustainability of Metro's funding and business model. Metro plays a critical role in the multimodal transportation network that serves our community. Its success is essential to the long-term economic prosperity of our region. However, given these high stakes, we are concerned that its current cost growth is unsustainable. Metro's operating budget is currently on track to grow by 8.7% in FY24. This is higher than the 4.6% wage increase required by the CBA and significantly higher than the current 3% national inflation rate. In FY25, even including the identified $50 million in ongoing cost savings, Metro's operating budget is projected to grow an additional 5.9%. Metro is facing a dire financial situation, not simply because of a lack of dedicated funding, but because current operating cost growth will outpace state and local tax revenue sources. For example, DC's general fund is currently projected to grow by 2% a year, and Northern Virginia's regional sales tax revenue has historically grown by 3%. Without further addressing cost growth, Metro's operating budget will require the continued diversion of resources from other transportation, education, and health and human service priorities from state and local governments across our region. Northern Virginia individuals, families, and businesses are all required to live within their financial means. Right-sizing Metro service and operations now to meet a sustainable level of revenue growth will help avoid future draconian service cuts. Therefore, we urge the Northern Virginia's elected officials and representatives on the WMATA board to evaluate Metro's financial need for the next 2 years, identify Virginia's current share of both subsidy credit and any remaining shortfall in local operating subsidy, keep the 3% subsidy cap, but reset the local subsidies to account for the remaining FY25 and 26 shortfall once all other cost savings and internal revenue sources have been identified, and split equally between the Commonwealth and local jurisdictions Virginia's remaining shortfall. And finally, and I think this is very important, creating an independent regional commission over the next 2 years to evaluate operating costs, capital project prioritization and need, Inspector General independence, and new dedicated funding requirements for operating and capital to serve Metro over the next decade. Taking these steps will allow Metro to avoid draconian service cuts and provide regional elected leaders such as yourselves with information necessary to put Metro on a long-term sustainable path. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stanford. Appreciate all 4 of the comments, and those in particular who came tonight, as well as those who submitted in writing. So now we will turn to our next steps. We have, let's see, we have, we thank everyone for their comments. The work plan is a living document that earlier. The public hearing is now closed. Action item 5B is next on our agenda. To approve the MDT's FY 2025 general and administrative budget and the 2023 work plan. We'll turn to action on that budget. At December meeting, commission was briefed on the proposed budget and work plan. In some level of detail, the executive committee included both documents to be provided to the full commission for action. And what is being presented today is identical to what was approved by the executive committee and presented to the commission last month. Okay, as this was identical to what was presented last month, did any other commissioners have any new questions or comments for staff? And just because we've been moving quickly doesn't mean that if you have comments, feel free to share those comments. I think we discussed a little bit of the investments that are in the new budget. Hearing no comments, well, with leaving time if you have them, can I have a motion to approve the FY 2025 general and administrative budget and the 2024-2025 work? Moved by Chair Garvey, seconded by, or Commissioner Garvey, sorry, and seconded by Ms. Polchek. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? I will note that I think for this, just for Rhonda, your purposes, I think Mr. Skiles is here but not in the room at the moment. Mr. Snyder, on the budget and the work plan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. Thanks, everyone, for your consideration. We will turn next to item number 8, which is report from Virginia WMATA board members. We have Board Chair Paul Smithford and Board Member Matt Letourneau here to give the WMATA board report. We're not planning any additional report from our WMATA Committee Chair, Mr. Alcorn, at the written report to be included in the materials. Please note that the January 18th WMATA Committee meeting has been canceled, and the next meeting will be in February. It's a good thing. I promised my wife only 5 meetings this month. Rhonda is working with WMATA Committee Chair Alcorn and committee members on a date and time in February, because we will have a lot of work to do to resolve some mistakes on this. So I will turn it over to Mr. Svedberg and Mr. Letourneau. I will add an editorial from me, which is congratulations to Mr. Letourneau on returning this year. That was a lot of work. So I don't know who wants to lead.
I will start off. We're going to start with the budget. And since I'm the finance chair, I get to continue to give all the good news on Metro's proposed budget, FY25 budget. I think this is probably going to be the most informed room that I'll ever talk to about this, because I think all of you know the situation, know the context of the budget. But the general manager introduced his proposed FY25 budget to our Finance and Capital Committee on December 14th. This is his attempt to put forward staff recommendations for a balanced budget. We cannot assume that we are getting more money, either from our jurisdictional partners or from our state partners. And so the budget that's presented at this juncture is based on known funding conditions and existing legal constraints. To any increases in operating assistance, and thus I will say at the onset, we are all in agreement. It is not a good budget, and we absolutely don't want to pass it. So a few of the lowlights of the budget is that it would eliminate Metro bus service on 67 routes, 67 out of 135 routes, and then the 41 of the remaining routes would see reduced service, in some cases significantly reduced service. Metro rail service would be decreased system-wide. Headways would move to 15 minutes on weekdays and 20 minutes on weekends. The Metro rail system would close at 10 p.m. And I know Mr. Snyder virtually will be particularly chagrined that 10 stations are being proposed for closure by the general manager. We did not specifically identify those 10 stations, but the formula that staff has proposed is to use the 10 lowest ridership stations while taking into account a factor of not closing 2 stations in a row. If you dug through our ridership data, you could figure out where a lot of those stations are. And unfortunately for us, they're in Virginia. And so we would be particularly hard hit if that were to come to pass. And then there would be a 20% fare and a 20% parking increase implemented system-wide. So you'd be asking folks to pay more money for service. The budget does include some things that I think is worth highlighting, particularly in light of some of the remarks that were just made. There's 124 million of internal cost savings that Metro management has identified in this budget. And it's easy, we're dealing with big numbers here. I don't want to gloss over that because over the last 12 months, the Metro team really has done, I think, extraordinary work going through the internal operations of the authority and finding absolutely every cent that we can to try to save. The reality for our organization, and it's, I know, similar for all of us in local government, is that the vast majority of our costs are labor. Upwards of 70% of our costs are in fact labor. So when we talk about what WMATA's costs are, that's really what we're talking about. And that's why, as a result of this budget, there's nearly 3,000 layoffs that are being proposed. We have to start that process now. It's a 6-month process with our collective bargaining units on layoffs. So I can tell you that in the budget, there are no raises proposed for any Metro employees, both represented and non-represented, including management. So that's, again, those are things that are going to be difficult to work through, especially in this environment. The budget, in addition to that 124 million is a savings, plus we're talking about the preventive maintenance transfer. If we included 193 million preventative maintenance transfer from operating to capital, it would still leave us with a $433 million gap. Without that preventive maintenance transfer, obviously the gap is higher. So when all of us are kind of talking, particularly as we look ahead to the General Assembly session, about some of the numbers that are being thrown around, most of that is assuming that we max the amount of preventive maintenance transfer that we can, that our board does that. There are implications to doing that, of course, but it would help reduce the deficit, at least in the short term. On the capital side, we have an $11 billion CIP for FY25 to 2030. CIP would leave the future state of good repair and modernization needs unfunded. It would not be funded. In the short term, the proposed CIP would jeopardize the current time frame for the transition to the 8000 series rail car. It would extend, therefore, the time period that the older cars, the 3000 series trains, would be out on the fleet, which would have an impact on reliability and cost. And it would also delay significantly zero emission bus implementation. Metro staff has presented proposed subsidy allocation tables that include 348 million contribution from the Commonwealth under the 3% cap. Again, we're operating under the assumption that we have this 3% cap. Obviously, as part of our legislative discussion, we need to change that, but that's the current situation. To prevent service cuts and fare increases, Virginia's total contribution would need to grow by $95 million. And to prevent cuts and the preventive maintenance transfer, an additional $180 million would be required. So this is a starting point. As I said, when the budget was presented, I hope it is the low point in our budget conversation for this year. We do follow roughly the same budget timeline that most of our jurisdictions do, in that we adopt a budget in April. We may push that back a little bit, given the uncertainty in funding. This is going to be a very tricky year for our jurisdictional staff because these numbers are going to be changing. Certainly, we're hopeful, we're optimistic that there will be more money coming. I think where the board may have the real challenge is in figuring out, if we get some of the money, but not all of the money, which of these things in this menu that the general manager has presented stay, and which of them are we able to go? You know, I've expressed and the chairman's expressed our desire not to close any stations, you know, as one of the first things we would like to address if we do have more money. But certainly there's a lot of other priorities that different board members have, a lot of other issues. One thing I didn't touch on, for instance, is the Metro access service would be significantly shrunk down in terms of footprint. So there's all those kinds of issues that we have to work through. But as we get a clearer picture of what's going to happen on the 3% cap and what's going to happen on both local and state funding, we'll be able to kind of work that through. In the meantime, Metro does have to proceed with a public hearing on this budget. We are going to be voting on authorizing that public hearing coming up this month. The board may make some tweaks to what the general manager has proposed, even within kind of the doomsday scenario. We're having some Metro board member discussions next week on that. And then on the 11th, we'll have a finance capital committee work session on the general manager's proposed budget. That'll set us up for on the 25th, voting to send that out for a public hearing. It's going to be a tricky kind of public hearing process. It's not going to be a surprise what public input and feedback is going to be on this type of proposal. So I think what we're really going to try to prioritize out of this public input process is understanding what the biggest priorities are from our riders. You know, again, going back into kind of a mode where what we'll be able to sort of save, and what, you know, maybe not. So headways, for instance, versus station closures, all those kinds of things versus operating hours. So I will stop there on that topic, but happy to take questions, and I'll turn it over to Paul for some updates on some other Metro related items.
Okay, so in some other news, you're likely to see all-door boarding and 24/7 bus service started on selected routes, or that did start already on December 17th. This will allow for quicker boarding across the Metro bus system and more options for early morning and late night riders. Also, a reminder that Metro has a series of service adjustments coming up this weekend that will primarily affect the Red Line, but you'll also see longer headways on the Silver, Blue, and Orange through the weekend as well. And in your written report, you can find information about Metro's Title VI program and other details about the general manager's budget that he presented this month. Matt and I did want to take this opportunity to just be a little proactive here. Some of you may have read or heard about in the local press that the NTSB held a press conference today about WMATA's 7,000 series car derailment, an issue that we were dealing with. By and large, the report from NTSB was fairly favorable toward WMATA. However, the chair of the NTSB, in her public comment, stated that Metro's poor safety culture and its failure to evaluate and mitigate safety risks, you know, were a continuing issue. So, you know, we wanted to address that a little bit. I know, you know, some people say certain things to get headlines and get attention, but wanted to state some of the facts, because a lot in this area over time has really been, you know, people really don't know the facts about what's happening within Metro, or don't take the time to really read and learn or even ask questions about it. So just wanted to highlight just a few of them really, really quickly. First, in trending and analysis. So building Metro's trending and analysis process was the only recommendation that the NTSB released today that Metro should proactively do. And Metro has already taken several steps to improve that. The agency has improved its tracking and management of rail car assets, and its prioritization of analysis of safety critical assets across all maintenance functions. And that ability to do this work is going to be integrated into the new command and communications center that just opened in Alexandria. So that's a huge step forward. Assessing the safety culture, Metro conducted a complete safety culture survey to inform improvements. This was supported by MITRE. Several of you probably know about MITRE. They're an organization that has extensive experience in working with industries to establish strong safety cultures and identify to reduce risk. Third, delivering strategic and systematic culture changes. Since 2020, Metro has annually revised its agency safety plan and approved it, which has been approved by the board, which outlines the path to an improved safety culture. The last 2 years have seen dramatic progress with agency-wide implementation of the safety management system. And the SMS is a huge effort, very detailed. Kate, you probably are familiar with this from your prior experience, but it is a really huge task to take on, and great strides have been made in that area with the team in place. Safety certified projects, Metro leads the industry, and to the extent and quality of its safety certification function and testing new technology. Metro has 4 automated wayside inspections systems on the track. You may have heard us mention this before, but they're systems that are out there that automatically evaluate the trains or the rail cars as they go by. So it's really a great system. And if you can indulge me just for another minute, I wanted to just highlight some things that our safety team presented to the board last month. Some things, and I think Matt and I have said this before, but if you look at all the measurements that all the safety agencies use, Metro is the safest system in the nation, period. So first, rail collisions, we're the industry leader with the lowest amount. Rail derailments, industry leader with by far the lowest amount. Rail customer injuries, by far the industry leader by the lowest amount. Rail employee injuries, better than average, we're somewhere in the bottom third. Safety rail initiatives planned and in progress, return to 7K, automatic train operations, we're moving to our ATO. Operational safety work groups, all the radio infrastructure has been replaced, and safety equipment in that regard has been replaced, and all the escalator rehabilitation and replacement is well underway. 4 final things. Bike and pedestrian industries, the industry leader by far. Collisions, better than average. Bus, yeah.
Yes.
For bus, sorry. Collisions, we're in the lower third, but much better than average. Customer injuries, we're average, we're somewhere in the middle. And employee industries, we're better than average. Again, we're in the bottom quarter, actually now. But anyway, so those are the measures that all these safety people look at, in addition to numerous others. Plus, we have the Safety Commission oversight, and we have other requirements that, Jeff, you know, having been on the board, that WMATA is required to do that other agencies don't have to do or report them. We are analyzed and have oversight on every single thing. So, you know, it is a little, you know, concerning when a leader in this area says something like that, when the facts are the total opposite of what is being said. So we just wanted to put that out there. And, you know, particularly as we go into this really important discussion about WMATA's future, it's things like this that we don't want distractions on, because elected officials and others would use headlines like that or statements like that aren't informed and use that to go against Metro, and it's really not fair. You know, we have a new general manager, as you know, and in the last 16 months, this organization has been transformed in ways that, you know, people don't even recognize. And it's the culture, the work culture has changed. Yeah, I mean, everything about the organization has really changed. I mean, it really is really pretty amazing. So, we wanted to let you know that because, everyone bashes Metro all the time. And, it gets a little tiring, I gotta say, because what's really happening, if people really took time to be informed, I think they would walk away with a little different opinion. So just wanted to put that out there. We wanted to be a little proactive because there's going to be a lot out there on the press about this just because it's safety and there should be. But, some of the things being said just, simply are not true. So.
Thank you, Paul and Matt. Thanks very much for all of that. Now we have rushed through some other pieces so that we have time to have discussion of this, and I'll first go to Commissioner Polchek. You have questions.
Mr. Chair, this evening. I think just a question and then maybe a comment question. So on the outreach plan for gaining feedback from the community, especially as we're talking about closures and response service, is there currently a plan on proactive outreach? And MTC did just an excellent job this year to our, especially our minority communities, whether it's partnering with organizations, doing the engagement and the outreach.
Yeah, we have a pretty robust plan. We have our customer service team is going to be presenting that plan to the board, which we'll approve on the 25th. I don't even remember the number of languages that we translate into, but it's extensive. You'll see folks out on the system soliciting feedback. There'll be numerous opportunities to do that. Yep.
Okay, that's important because I do appreciate that the focus will be on getting the feedback on priorities, but
Right.
making sure that there's like outreach and truly engagement. So critical. And then to Paul's point, while I know it's disappointing today to hear that, and I know that there are continued improvements, we know that more need to happen, but that we're definitely on the right track, especially with Randy. Looking at the messaging is getting out there because our Senator Serville, I believe that today on CIS or earlier today, spoke absolutely about the importance of funding Metro. I think he's read our report and mentioned that well, it says $1 billion in personal income, 4.5 billion in total. That's what we saw and why it's so important. And looking at the fact that 40% of states' income tax and revenue comes from revenue support. The work is happening, it's getting out to the community, and he did mention $150 million in his budget. It would be wonderful. Not the message we're getting from the governor. So hopefully we continue to see that and push that message forward. That yes, improvements are happening and continue to happen, and we've heard about cuts that need to happen, but we don't want those painful ones, especially ones that will break us. And that the issues have been there for long before this year and the current crisis. The structurally has to change. I did see you mention the long term won't happen this year, but we do absolutely need to keep pushing that message that is getting out there. And I think all of us continue to do. There is a crisis this year as we look at the long term for what will happen in this session.
Thank you for the comments, Commissioner Palchik. And open for others. I do have a couple of questions myself, just that one is maybe as follow-up, Paul, if it's possible, the time period that you're analyzing those, the last slide that you referred to, that time period would be helpful, because I find that when I contradict someone and I say and I have the time period, I'm able to be specific, I more often win the conversation than when I don't. So if you don't have it now, or
We do, we got it. Yeah, so it's from 2018 to 2022.
Great. And then if I heard you right, a lot of those, we were above the 50 percentile, but in the bottom of the top third or the bottom of the top quarter. Is that?
The bottom
No.
meant the lowest number of injuries.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's great. And then I'll just be quick. I really appreciate the memo in the materials. There was a couple of pieces of it that I just am interested a little bit regarding the fare increases. I'm mindful that it's so important that there's now the targeted lift program, I think it is, to relieve for those who are low income. But at least on the parking, some of those seem like, you know, the 20% on the parking, I could see, maybe not 20%, but some increase there. And then on long haul, you know, rides, no disrespect to our Loudon riders, but I could see an argument for that, even as, you know, there are arguments out there so those are just a couple that I wanted to highlight on. Certainly you may have comments or not, but some of the other pieces of it were have to be by law sufficiently stark, the cuts, that I didn't gravitate towards.
So, yeah, the fare piece, the problem with raising fare is that you also decrease ridership.
Yeah.
So you don't get the full savings, quote unquote, from the revenue that you think you're gonna get. I think what the board has said is we will, even in a non-doomsday scenario, we will put a fare increase on the table. It may not be this level of what's in the sort of doomsday budget presentation from the general manager, but we think it's important for all of our stakeholders to understand that we do think that Metro riders have some skin in the game when it comes to closing this deficit. We're kind of, various board members have various opinions about what that should be and who that should impact and whether it should be long haul and so on. And you can make both arguments because the long haul rider is the one that we are missing. That's the one that didn't come back, basically. So if you look at kind of, our budget, we're under budget projection for this fiscal year, not because we're really under our ridership projection, but because the length of trip is different than what we were expecting, because we didn't, people came back in different ways, and the longer haul riders who pay more are the ones that are the slowest to come back to the system. One thing I did want to mention as well on the kind of metrics, we also have quite a few metrics on costs against peer agencies and against other DOT entities in the region. And they all show that Metro's growth is actually less than, I'd say, it's in the bottom half of agencies, both within the region and when we look at our peers. So, or it's at least in line with others.
Great, very helpful on that last one. I did get asked about that in one conversation. Are there other?
Metro fares have not been increased.
Yeah, we've had some changes last year with the base fare, but we haven't really done a fare increase, so it's.
Sure. Chair, Ms. Gardner.
Thank you so much for this. I find myself thinking that saying, in our business, politics business, there's no such thing as facts. I mean, and it's so frustrating. And you keep giving us wonderful facts, and I'm really impressed, but how do we communicate? Does Metro, they think of like hiring a professional communications team. I mean, and also.
Yeah, well,
We have talked to people who were blue in the face, presenting it as simply as we can, and every time it's like starting over.
There's a good team in place.
It's a very good team.
I don't know what, we talk about the Biden administration, they've got this economy doing these types of great, it's horrible. I mean, it really is this issue of fact, and I just, no good answer, but we've got it.
I mean, we've tried to do it. We've done some videos. We've done, there's a lot of different things. I mean, look,
people tours.
But I think it's important to say though, our metrics on customer satisfaction are really high. I mean, they have significantly increased. So the actual riders, they're our best evangelizers at this point because they have seen the improvement on the system. And what we've said we were going to do was we wanted to get to a point where we could run the system as good as it can be run, knowing we have these fiscal challenges, but we wanted to show the region this is what we can do. And if you're out on the system every day, you're seeing that. I mean, the frequencies are fantastic. The service is good. Of course, there's always going to be some issue somewhere at some point, but by and large, it's a very reliable system. So, and I do think people notice that. And I do think that is a conversation now that folks are having. So it's not all bad news on that front. Media is one thing, it's just, they're going to gravitate to a quote. The reality is the NTSB report today, actually, most of it talked about improvements in Metro, talked about cooperation for Metro, talked about how various aspects of this have been implemented. but you know, there's a few
But the
quotes.
only thing people are gonna hear is that
There's
quote,
that
right?
quote, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know what to,
So,
I don't know what
yeah.
to tell you.
There's no fixing
It
that.
feels like we keep doing the same thing, and getting the same results, so I don't know what to
Yeah.
do, but thank you for all of this, and maybe
Yeah.
it's just persistent staying the same, good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you both, Mr. Karantanis.
Thank you. I'm a user of Metro and that's that this is a very different system today than it was 2 years ago. There's no question about that. You can go and even when things are, bumpy, like during the month of December, there was a Metro Center fix. That was big disruption, yet it was managed fairly well. I came very late to several of my meetings, but it was still very well managed. So I have one thing, we talked many times here and we did repeat it today, and I think it's an important thing because it is the essence of the doomsday. So there is this big stakeholder in the room, that's our businesses. I mean, when I talk about Metro funding, I talk also about the thousands of jobs that are actually on the block, on the chopping block, if Metro goes into anything close to doomsday. We have, alone here in Northern Virginia, we have at least 30,000 people who work in hospitality, and more. So, to me, a powerful argument is, something is not only about the Metro budget, but about everything else. We have been making this argument saying that this 1.5 billion is a also jobs. It's, the livelihood of people. And I don't believe that this is actually coming through. And I do believe that our industry and our economic stakeholders need to show somewhere this conversation. If not,
Well, the challenge the organization has is that a lot of these jobs are highly skilled jobs. You just can't interview someone on Friday and start someone on Monday. And there's a lot of training that goes into these jobs. I want to highlight too, Matthew highlighted the savings. This was in addition to savings that have been going on for the last couple of years. This figure here is new savings that they really scrub things, dollar amounts, but also the number of people that could potentially lose their job. There have been other, pretty significant reductions in staff over the last 5 years, so 6 years. That happened, a lot of savings going on, and now we've got this additions. So this isn't the first time that, Metro sat down and looked, for savings. This has been an ongoing effort. But this last year has been particularly, it took a lot of effort to get to this point, and there's a lot of stuff that isn't gonna get done.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Karantanis. Ms. Beck?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm curious, sorry, my voice is going, but I'll do my best. The chart that you referenced, figure 3, that shows operating growth relative to other agencies. I found that really useful. I'm curious, does it exist? Is there a chart that exists somewhere else in one of the reports that maybe wasn't in the subset of selections here that shows how revenues are accounted for with those other agencies? Like, is that, to what extent theirs are coming from fares versus?
Yeah, I know, and I know Kate, you've done that work.
Yeah. Maybe we can get that and send that around.
I think that's a useful, socializing part of the conversation in the community, that this isn't just about finding that magical fare figure.
Right.
Or, maximizing, route numbers. There has to be a mix of inputs on the revenue side.
Right, yeah, and the context is, not to sound fatigued and defeated on this topic, but I was one of the loudest voices on fare evasion. It drives me nuts. It drove me nuts that we weren't enforcing it. We can get into the politics of all this and what happened in the district, and Jeff, when you were on the board and all that stuff. But the reality is, we're in complete agreement, right? I mean, Randy came in, the board directed him, enough of this. We've begun, a number of prosecutions are about like hundreds of percent. We're installing new fare gates that are much harder to abate. We're seeing our numbers are dramatically going down on fare evasion. The reality is that's a $40 million problem at its max, and you're never gonna collect, you know, the amount of money it would take to collect every last cent of that would make no sense. So we're gonna get that number down, but, you know, if you read the comment section of the Washington Post on every single story about Metro funding, there's 75% of the comments are about, well, if Metro just collected its fare. Well, no, no, like you know, that's $40 million, yes, but the deficit is structural and it's hundreds of millions of dollars. So we're in agreement, but you're absolutely right about the context.
Yeah, and to be clear, the question
Yeah,
wasn't a
I know.
criticism. of
No,
the-
no, no, I know, I didn't take it
Yeah,
out, just.
it was
yeah,
just as
yeah.
we continue to talk
Yeah.
about it locally and
Yeah.
in our own Alexandria city budget, you know.
Right.
I want to be sure that we're putting these things in context.
Yep.
Because every system has a degree of fare evasion.
Of course, yeah.
And so this is just the nature of delivering the product. And so I just, you know, maybe I can look at the NBT chart that shows how other, you know, other transit agencies break down their revenue, what percentage comes from revenue versus other sources.
Yep.
All right, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Bagley. Not seeing any other hands, I really appreciate both of your continued hard work. I'm struck by the kind of concluding thought of, and how frustrating when you're trying to talk facts and do thorough analysis. I find that you can get into a, you know, you guys try so hard not to be in, we're not perfect. And it's also not this, you know, the narrative that it's the same over the last 12 years. It's just not accurate. So I guess I think of like the 40 million and I think of, you know, some of the arguments being made. I find I'm often better saying yes, and that's not going to fix anything,
Yeah.
as opposed to no, that's not. And yet, as last year's housing conversation in Arlington can attest, it's when you feel as though you're not dealing with necessarily full facts, it's really hard, but that's just 2 cents. Thank you for your ongoing work, both of you. I guess it's a mixed blessing. We get to do this, keep doing this, Matt. But thank you both, and thanks to all the commissioners for your comments. So now we will move on to item 9, which is a report from the chair of the Legislative and Policy Committee. Before we hear from our legislative liaison, Amy Perrin-Seibert, to give us an update on General Assembly. We will first like to remind commissioners how important it is for all of us who can to be down in Richmond on February 1st. Commissioner Evan, Senator Evan would know, we need to be in Richmond to make the case. So it's an opportunity to meet our legislators in person and make the case for transit. So with that, I'll send it to Ms. Perrin-Seibert for an update on the legislative piece. Go ahead.
Great, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate everybody's time tonight. I know it's been a long meeting. I won't take too long. Obviously, everybody knows the General Assembly starts next week on Wednesday, the 10th. Everybody is coming to town and settling into the new building and their new offices, which is very exciting and also a little stressful for everybody, I think. People trying to figure out where everything is. Still no signage, which has been a very interesting thing to be able to find everybody's offices. But as you guys know, I think obviously since the last meeting, the budget has come out. We've already talked a lot about that, so I'm not going to go through that too much, since obviously the main thing in there was the Metro language, especially the part dealing with the cap, which was good news, and we look forward to continuing to work with our Northern Virginia delegation on the Metro issue in the budget. So we're starting to see some bills start to trickle in, so we'll start keeping track of all of those. As you guys also know, VRE has a bill that we've been working on, so that will be something that we'll be keeping an eye on as well. And so we're just anticipating all the committee assignments that will be happening next week. I think that's probably the thing that we're all waiting the most to find out. Sort of, we know who the chairs are, but just kind of filling out all the committees, both with the Democrats and Republicans in the House and Senate, and seeing what everything looks like will be a relief for everybody, I think, to kind of have that certainty. So that will happen on the first day of session, and we'll know certainly a whole lot more at that point. So I don't have too much more to add besides that. Happy to answer any questions. As you know, the bills get filed they need to be filed by 10 a.m. on Wednesday morning. And so that's really when the big influx of bills will come in. Then the following Friday will be the final deadline for bills to be dropped. And obviously budget amendments are due that very first Friday. So there'll be quite a flurry in this first week of getting all that stuff done. So looking forward to having you guys come down in February for the meeting and reception, and looking forward to hosting everybody there. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Ms. Baron Cyber, and thank you for your work. I always about this time think about the intensity of session and how I'm not only jealous of those who get to go down for sure. So other commissioners have thoughts or comments, questions regarding our legislative strategy? Seeing none, I'll give just one last, not requirement, but Senator Evans, Commissioner Evans, did you have anything you wanted to add?
We have a new chair of the Transportation Committee in the Senate, Senator Jennifer Boysko. So I think she'll be helpful to us. And I think Amy captured it. We've got a lot of turnover, so there'll be a lot of people to catch up.
Sure. Great. Thank you. I'm sure that we will engage and appreciate that Kate is there and our entire team. And I know that the Metro team also will be there. So we will move on to item 10. Unless there's any other questions, I don't see any hands. So we have Senior Program Manager Ann McGrain. Is that correct? Do I have the pronunciation? Okay, good. To present the Northern Virginia Zero Emission Bus Strategic Plan. Key document for helping all our jurisdictions effectively plan for a zero emission future for their buses. We will review. She will review the 3 actions, and without objection, I would like to propose that we move these 3 actions as a block vote since they are related. This may seem familiar. We saw a draft in October, is that right? I think. And so over to you. And I think that there's slides that will magically appear as well. Go ahead.
Thank you very much and good evening, everyone. Next slide. So just as a quick reminder, because absolutely correct, we were last year in October to discuss this. The Northern Virginia Zero Emission Bus Strategic Plan has been developed over the past year, help figure out and explore how MVTC can support and provide value to local agencies as they transition to zero emission buses, which are both battery electric buses. Throughout this process, we've worked with our consultant team to identify challenges and opportunities, had staff level technical advisory committee, held 5 monthly zero emission bus working group meetings, and of course presented to the PAC and the commission. So in October, during my last presentation, I went over our draft strategies and actions, which are now coming before you again, this time for acceptance as the strategic plan. So if you go to the next slide, I can quickly go through the strategies and actions. They're on this slide and the next, and they're also available. There's a ZEB handout that contains the materials and of course the strategic plan as well. But really, the main difference between what's here now and what we showed in October is just that we've added some timeframes for when we expect different actions to go through over the next 5 years. So, and then actions that kind of have this dashed arrow from the bus indicate that it's an ongoing action. So for action 1A to continue facilitating the ZEB working group, that's something we're doing now. It's something we plan to continue doing into the future. I think a lot of people find it useful and helpful to have that forum to discuss issues. So our strategies 1 and 2 really reiterate a lot of the things that we're currently doing in terms of internal and external knowledge sharing and education. And then strategy 3, this provide regional ZEB funding coordination, really focuses on identifying funding opportunities that would be available at a regional level that we could take advantage of if we go in on things like joint grant applications, and things like that. Just moving on to the next slide, where the final 3 strategies are. Strategy 4, the support development of shared battery electric bus charging infrastructure. This I'm going to go into more detail in the next slide, so I'll just say that I'll just leave it for now at this is going to be a key area of focus for us in the next year. Strategy 5 is looking at evaluating private sector partners and how they can help in the zero emission bus transition, from like a kind of minor touch point of having industry listening sessions, understanding what's available in the industry, to then potentially more involved actions down the road, like a request for information that could potentially lead to something bigger. And then strategy 6 is an issue that I think we all discuss quite a bit when we're talking about this, which is just identifying and trying to support opportunities for workforce training. This really is a kind of new realm, and there's a lot of different aspects that do change operationally. So trying to identify that. So together, we feel that these steps best support Northern Virginia's local transit agencies, as each one of them individually, works through its zero emission bus transition, trying to find those points of agreement where we can kind of work together to make something more efficient, more cost effective, things like that. So moving on to the next slide, just to kind of highlight 2 new initiatives that we're looking to really get a good start on this year. They include a data dashboard and then the shared on-route charging feasibility study. So the idea for the dashboard, which we would do in-house like we've done with other dashboards, is to be able to share operational findings from our local agencies as they begin to operate zero emission buses. You can learn a lot from agencies across the country, but it's really helpful when you have agencies that are working within the same climate, same type of traffic, things like that, to really evaluate how those batteries in particular function. And this is something we've heard from agency staff during the process that they think would be really helpful. And kind of the timing of this is nice because we can start to figure out what's available, how we can share it among agencies. And it's happening really just as we're starting to expand battery electric bus fleets across the region. So very small, and then really expand the capabilities and the capacity of what we're sharing as we also expand along with it. Then the second initiative is the shared on-route charging feasibility study. And its purpose is to really conduct a study to examine the feasibility of how you operate a charging location that could be used by multiple agencies. This is something I think we could definitely discuss the PAC, maybe not as much as the commission, but there's this current battery electric buses sometimes can't complete the same, days trips as a comparable diesel bus unless they have an option to stop somewhere along their block to charge. And so given that limited space that we have near bus stops inside the Beltway in particular, as well as the high cost of charging infrastructure, we really want to explore this idea of how you could potentially share charging infrastructure among agencies where feasible. And it's something that's somewhat unique to our region, just given the number of operators we have. So we're proposing to do a feasibility study that will be in 2 parts. And the first part is really looking at the where question. So are there bus blocks that aren't currently feasible for a battery electric bus to serve, but that could be served if there was an on-route charging location? Then you're taking those and kind of overlaying, are there locations where multiple agencies overlap that could serve to help extend the range of those batteries? So once that question is solved, and if we identify viable locations, then there's kind of the how part that needs to be solved. Discussed. How do you operate? Who maintains? How do you pay for the charge amongst multiple agencies? How do you align schedules, prioritize buses from different agencies potentially as they arrive? And does this even save money? So this is a really important study that, if we prove feasibility, then it would have a concept developed far enough that we can have the funding hopefully and implement a location and provide that coordination and collaboration among multiple agencies to help them all be more successful with kind of expanded battery electric buses. So I gave a very detailed description of that because 2 of the 3 actions for tonight involve that plan. So if you can go to the next slide. The first action is simply to repeat the resolution to accept the Northern Virginia Zero Strategic Plan, which includes the strategies that I quickly walked through. And that approval will post the strategic plan to our website and be able to begin moving forward with these actions. The second and third actions are for the study. And so the first action is to authorize the executive director to submit a DRPT technical assistance grant to conduct a shared on-route charging study. The anticipated cost is $300,000, and it's a 50% it's a 50-50 split with DRPT and local match. And so that was initially what we were planning, but we also have now a third action, which is to authorize the executive director to execute an agreement if it's needed, to accept technical assistance from the Joint Office of Energy and Transportation. So the background on this is that the Joint Office combines staff from the U.S. Department of Energy and the U.S. Department of Transportation. It was an entity that was authorized under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA, to provide no-cost technical assistance to basically localities that ask for help. And so they have a variety of experts from the departments and then also national laboratories that study these things that provides assistance on planning and implementation of electric transportation, both for light duty fleets and bus transit fleets, freight, et cetera. And so I've been talking with them to obtain free technical assistance on certain elements of this planned on-route charging feasibility study. So our plan is for, should that technical assistance move forward, we have been talking with DRPT about potentially being able to adjust the scope of the assistance grant to build upon or really extend the ability of what we're able to do later on in that study. So really, these final two actions, they really allow for like a parallel track of approaches, which is nice from a timing perspective because the pre-technical assistance could start pretty soon, whereas the DRPT assistance starts later in fiscal year 25. So it's a really exciting opportunity. It's always nice to have three things first. And so that's kind of the approach we're going, seeing how we can really stretch that free assistance to then have that state and local funding come in kind of later on in the process. So with that, that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Green. Let's start with Mr. Skiles and go over to Ms. Chrisman.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if it's, from a procedural standpoint, move these in block.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to move in block action 1, 2, and 3 under A, 10A.
Second. So it's been moved and seconded. The actions are up on the screen. So I think that probably qualifies for our meeting minutes, et cetera. If it's okay, we did have some other questions, so we'll take those as discussion points. Ms. Brisman.
Thank you. So at least up in Loudoun County, I've been a little bit frustrated with, land use applications, developers, folks that want to put in gas stations. I always get the message that we're not going to put in as many charging stations as you would like because there's not enough demand from vehicles for charging stations. And my thought always is, well, people may not be buying these vehicles because there's not enough charging stations. Right, so it's like a chicken and an egg thing. Do you envision the joint charging project to satisfy demand or create more opportunities for electric buses to get on our roads?
I feel like the joint charging for the transit buses, it's really an opportunity to ensure that the specific answer is that within a fleet of buses, let's say if you have 100 buses, maybe 80% of their blocks, so they're like days routes, can maybe be completed right now based on current battery technology of a bus. It changes based on any jurisdiction. So some other jurisdictions, that number will be lower, others will be higher. But so we're looking for charging infrastructure that's on route that you can stop at as the bus is going about its service. Will fill that gap and make it like possible for battery electric buses to serve those areas. And so it really then becomes a matter of the shared charging infrastructure allows jurisdictions, especially that, if you think of the Loudoun County Transit's coming in and stopping in Arlington County, it's stopping in other locations. And so kind of inherently, it would need to be a shared charging location if there were buses that were going to be laying over in a different county. And so then it's figuring out all of the logistics around that. So I think it makes it more technically feasible
for a larger scale rollout of battery electric buses across the region. And so, you know, in a lot of other areas, if there's only one bus provider, they kind of have their agreements in place. So this is looking at how multiple agencies work together to get it done. So,
Is it that the facilities are really expensive to build? Or is it more a coordination of there might be different buses that need?
It's definitely a cost aspect. I think we all think it will save money, but I think part of the study is we want to verify that that's truly the case, because at a certain point, there is a point where if you have so many buses that are stopping at one place, maybe one agency could use up all the capacity, let's say, of that charging location. But you need to also, it's also a grid capacity issue, so there might, so there's a lot of answers, I guess, to your question.
I'll let it go there.
Thank you so much. I do one-on-ones if you wanna chat more.
Fantastic. Great job. I took advantage. So Mr. Karen Tennis.
Thank you for that, great job. One question only on goal 2C, interoperability, especially in denser places like here in the rural region. Interoperability is actually criteria of how we get to plan for these systems, how we pilot them, how we understand how they work, and how we understand that we will have to share resources. Why do we relegate the goal to year 3 and above? And why don't we do that a little bit earlier in our?
So I think we're definitely focused on interoperability, without a doubt. For that specific action, I think the idea is more that we expect as an area that has so many different bus operators that we will identify potential interoperability issues that haven't been identified. And so that goal is, it's almost more of a reporting out of issues that we find as we begin to implement things. So that's why it's further out from the perspective of it'll take a couple years for these issues to be identified. That said, I think there are already great stories about interoperability testing that are happening in the region. Dash took its bus to a WMATA facility, I think just last month, to test the overhead rails that it has, because WMATA has a pantograph charger installed at its facility, and so Dash was able to test its bus on a WMATA facility. And so people are definitely talking and coordinating on those things and making sure it works, because that is vitally important.
Thank you. For the record, I think this is a strict.
Great, so just we said it last time you presented, thank you for the excellent work. And whenever there are goals that have timelines associated, I have more confidence that we will, in Arlington, we will achieve those goals. So I really appreciate those, that addition to it. Great work. I don't know if this was, Commissioner Polchek, you had anything to add?
Yeah, I know a lot has been said. I really I mean, your reports and your staff getting better and better. I was so impressed by the WMATA report, by, you know, the impact of the investment, and now this really just goes above and beyond. I think for global, I've learned so much. I didn't use the BEP before. And the fact that I think we see the impact of having MVPC through this work, both the outline of where all of our jurisdictions are at this point and how far they all are in the process. Some of our larger than others, so it takes a bit longer. But then really looking at regionally the maps and supporting development. And I think the fact that you're able to really help us think strategically and provide support to our jurisdictions and to us making commissioners to see that global picture. And then finally, just not only that, but going above and beyond and trying to get us some free or low cost excellent support. I was blown away by the level of the thoughtfulness around both the graphics, the level of effort, ROI, priority for each of these. Just I really want to add to commending you and your staff. I know I've got to hear the wonderful words about my year here, but really it's your team that's just really keeps getting better every year in the work you do. So thank you.
Thank you. I think that Ms. Palchik just said that your work may be better than K2. No, thank you for the excellent work. And so now we'll take a vote on the an in-block motion. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Snyder, are you on the question of number 10, the 3 action items in block? Mr. Snyder, are you there? And I actually don't know, would Mr. Brule also be voting on this?
No.
Snyder votes yes.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Okay. Oh, that's right. Mr. Snyder is here. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next item. Thanks very much, Mr. Frame. The next item is item 11. We have Rich Dalton here to give us his EO report of Erie Operation Board Chair, James Walkinshaw, and budget and information items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be concise, given the fact that we have an action item here to follow. I just wanted to state that as we close out the calendar year, we will be submitting to the commission by the end of the month electronically our annual report. But in your package, you do have the CEO report. I did want to just report that from a ridership perspective, year over year, in the calendar year, 30% increase in ridership over the calendar year 2022. As I come in and also report monthly about system performance, still auditing the final number for the year, but we came in about on par with the previous year. As you know, throughout calendar year 2023, we had a lot of congestion related issues and stuff like that. So still slightly below our target of 90%, but that looks like that's going to end up being about the new 80% for us. So again, we get into a little bit more after we present our annual report to you, likely at the next meeting. But with that, I would entertain any questions, but we do have a budget action item on here that may generate more questions as well. So I'd like to get to that as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Dalton. We'll take that as a cue. You stay concise, you stay brief, you can always keep to it. We appreciate it. Also mindful, really appreciate the report and the work. Mr. Walkinshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We just have one action item and I'll just introduce it and let Mark give this presentation, but resolution 2531 will adopt and refer the revised FY24 operating capital budgets and recommended FY25 operating capital budget and further jurisdictions for their review. And then also will authorize the executive directors to see necessary actions to apply for federal and state grant funding. I won't step on any of Mark's lines. I've said this before. That's a really exciting moment for VRE because this budget includes our first ever Saturday service, which I really think is going to be a game changer for us and something we were planning before the pandemic, but it's even more necessary now given the changes that we've experienced since the pandemic. So with that, I'll let Mark give us a quick presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Walkinshaw, and good evening, commission members. Just to talk about the process very briefly, after hopefully you all approve the budget this evening, we will be down at PRCC next Thursday to get their approval, and then as Mr. Walkinshaw indicated, then it will go out to the jurisdictions for their incorporation in their budgets. For FY25, we also are starting now to get the dedicated money out of the MTF in state level. So we now also have to present our budget to DRPT and Commonwealth Transportation Board. So we will be doing that as well. So jumping to the substance of the budget, I just want to make a few highlights and then I would be happy to take any questions. As Mr. Walkinshaw indicated, really the biggest highlight of the budget is the changes that we are looking at for improving and expanding service, not just the planned inauguration of this Saturday
service, which will increase our service by about 8%. But also looking at opportunities for enhancing our sort of regular weekday commuter service. In particular, if you're on the Manassas line, plugging a hole in the morning commute that we have right now. We think putting a train in there will really actually generate new riders, and we're looking forward to doing that. As we've indicated all along, this is sort of a dual track process. My team is as part of the budget, making sure that the resources are there to do these changes. Rich and the rest of the team having the discussions that we have to have with the host railroads, with Keolis, our contractor. And so all of these changes are still contingent upon getting that final approval from all of those stakeholders. So next slide, please. As we've talked about, since the pandemic, we really have had a freeze both on increases to the passenger fares and also increases to the jurisdictional contribution to the budget. And we have actually used a decent portion of our pandemic relief money to provide relief to the jurisdictions. And so in this budget for next year, we really are trying to get back on the horse, both in terms of, and doing that in an equitable way to have both the passengers and the jurisdictions make the contributions that they need to the budget. So we're getting back to the $18.3 million level that we were at in FY21. As Mr. Walkinshaw has made the point a number of times, that's not getting everything back. It would be about 22 million had we been growing with inflation. But it is the right trend. It is the right move. And then as far as the passengers, we took out to the public a proposed increase to our overall structure of 5%. Again, that doesn't nearly cover everything that's happened since the last increase in 2020, but again, getting back on that path, we expect that increase to generate about an additional $1 million. We also are making a number of other smaller changes to the structure, making permanent the flat $5 fare that we have if you're traveling just in the inner 1 to 3 zones. Getting rid of our weekly pass, which was really not being utilized by many passengers, and then also changing from where we currently allow kids 10 and under to ride for free and youths 11 to 18 to ride for half price. Getting rid of that program and letting all kids 18 and under ride for free. We really want to encourage larger groups, families to be able to ride VRE and not to view the cost of bringing the kids with us as maybe a reason that it didn't cost. When we did take this out to the public, we got very positive responses on all the components here. So next slide, please. I don't want to dig too much into the sort of the nitty gritty of the costs. We had significant cost increases related to inflation in last year's budget. Those have mostly come back down to sort of normal historical levels. Diesel fuel, which is one of the major line items that we have, is at a more normal level. The cost of insurance, which is also a major item, always we're subject to, the vagaries of the market. That appears to be pretty stable right now. So I think the last 2 bullet points here are really the most important. One is we have recommended adding 2 employees to VRE, one in our facilities group, because we are adding new facilities on all the time, just like the Lou that we opened earlier this fiscal year. And then on the IT side, really the ever expanding requirements in terms of cybersecurity. We need expertise in that area. But I think that last comment, we understand that we are in a constrained time. We always have to make tough decisions, but nothing is being deferred that is necessary for us to continue to deliver that safe service that our customers demand, while still trying to sort of target additional expense toward marketing, toward how do we draw new customers in to VRE. That's really where the budget is at. On the operating side of things, we could go to the next one, please. This is a really high level look at our capital program over the next 6 years. It's not terribly different than the one last year. That was also about 1.3 billion in total. across all those different various program areas. And we have three major capital projects that either have been or will be completed in this year. That's the Lou project that I mentioned earlier, our rehab of the Fredericksburg station, and then our new expansion of the Quantico station. We have two other big projects that are in flight right now, the Manassas Park parking garage, and then the delivery of our 21 new rail cars. Those will continue. Then we have a number of other projects that are in the design and engineering phases that we expect to be bringing to construction pretty quickly. The capital program, as you'll see, is about 2/3 funded, 1/3 not funded currently. We have a major program area of sort of out-year rolling stock locomotives and rail cars that we have not yet identified where the money for that will come from. That's the bulk of it. We also have a couple of our major storage and maintenance facilities we do have gaps on those that we are working right now to determine where the money will come from. Last slide, please. So just to give an update on where we are, again, I mentioned earlier the pandemic relief money. So that has come in 3 different tranches. All of our CARES money has been drawn and used. We are in the middle of using our rescue plan money, $119 million there. We expect to have used up by the end of the upcoming year, fiscal 25. That would be the top of the sort of gray bar there in the middle, about 2/3 of that, leaving, a chunk of the rescue plan money and then all of the CRISP money out in the out years. And we continue to keep a close eye on this, and as again, it's really a dollar for dollar kind of a thing. Every extra dollar that we can bring in from passengers, every extra dollar of expense that we don't suspend, that allows the runway of that pandemic money to last longer. So, and with that.
Thank you, Mr. Schofield. Are there questions that others, other than Mr. Walkinshaw, we can certainly also move to a motion expeditiously, but are there questions that folks would have? I'm so glad the last slide was presented, and I have not, there are no full references for either benefit Mr. Walkinshaw. I wish I don't think to be worried about in detail about what happens in fiscal year 2026. We're not in that bucket at the moment. But Mr. Collins.
Just very quickly, I just want to thank the operations board. I'm no longer a member of that, but this is not an overnight thing. This has been discussed a lot at the operations board. It's a very deliberate planning exercise, and it's just.
Do you want to move the item?
Sure, I move approval of resolution 25.
Second by Ms. Bagley. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Snyder?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thanks so much. We're on to item 11C. Mr. Walkinshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just information item at the December 15th Operations Board meeting, the following slate of the area officers was approved for 2024. The chair will be Meg Bonke from Stafford County. The vice chair will be our own Sarah Bagley. Secretary will be Ralph Smith from the city of Manassas. Treasurer will be Dan Stork, and our at-large officer will be Andrea Bentley. County will be installed at our January 24th meeting. And also in your packet 11D, you have just a presentation on the Crystal City station improvements for those who are interested in learning more about that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Walkinshaw. Thank you as well for your work as chair in this important area. And thank you to Mr. Dalton, Mr. Schofield. We will move on to item 12, Department of Rail and Public Transportation. We are pleased to have ERPT Director Rule here electronically. Perhaps given Grow the last meeting in December, you are pleased to be here electronically as well. In person, significant work we did. If you have any major funny announcements by Long Bridge, we'll certainly take them, but I doubt. So over to you for your report, Director.
a slightly less historic day for the January meeting than what we had in December. You have my written report in the package, and given the lateness of the hour, I'll let that stand for what it is, and certainly happy to be with you again this evening.
The record rule. Unless there are questions, we'll move on to item 13, which is the executive director's report. Kate, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as always, we have our latest edition of our monthly newsletter, lots of great photos and captions, a lot of the things that happened over the last month. Everything right now is focused on the launching of our 60th anniversary. We do look forward to seeing folks at our reception, policy forum, and our evening celebration. And again, we do not plan on having a commission meeting in Richmond in February. There will be a staff report that will be provided, but what we're looking forward to seeing all of you together in Richmond on the 1st of February. And again, we're working through some of the community details for program advisory and WMATA committee. We'll get those all firmed up and send those out. So we'll be back for March 7th. And finally, I did mention Nathan before, but I want to mention him again. Nathan Burnell has been our transit development communication space this year. So we talk about a lot of the amazing things. We have a great staff and communication space, but Nathan's also been helping an incredible amount on doing NBTC historical research, naming headlines, social media, etc. We're actually excited because we have a new transit fellow starting, I believe, next week in the communication space as well. So the fellowship program has been absolutely fantastic. And Nathan's going to be moving to the GAO, right? General Accountability Office, working for the federal government, a great place to be launching while he finishes his master's degree. So thank you very much, Nathan, for all your incredible work.
Yeah, good man.
And finally, our financial reports, as always, are including your written materials. Scott here to answer any questions. This concludes my report.
Questions or comments? Board, including the financial results, any other comments or questions, feel free to ask if you have. Otherwise, it is a dark, somewhat cold night in January, so we will adjourn.